Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Hey, what is up, cool bettors and lock shoppers? Welcome to a Friday edition of the show. Huss and JBM with you today. Welcome to everybody that's hanging out in the live YouTube chat. And a shout out to all of you checking us out on the Edmonton Sports Talk live stream. We are going to get into a little Olympics. We have to talk about that insane CFL game last night and what will be a consistent topic over the next few weeks. A few NFL futures to discuss. I'm already seeing Dawson Nielsen, who was wondering about discussing the potential rushing leaders. Derrick Henry was talking about 800. Coolbet's got him at 10-1 right now. So Dawson, if you're looking around for a good number, 10-1 on Derrick Henry. We'll talk about rushing leaders and a few of our favorite props for the upcoming season in just a few minutes. But let's bring the kid in, Jake Bolin Moss of Coolbet. What's going on, dude?
Not too much, Huss. I got to say, for an August 9th, it feels like we got a decent amount to talk about. Usually this time of the year, without an Olympic year, we'd kind of be grasping at straws, but we got plenty to focus on, including what was a crazy finish to that CFL game. I told you off air that I did catch the end of it, but if you want to kind of break it down for the folks who missed it, maybe that's where we'll start for the day.
I mean, listen, if you had it, and I can't even imagine the feeling of somebody that had under 43.5 in that game last night, because honest to God, that might be the most bizarre over ever when you think about how things played out. If you missed the game last night, gang, it's a monsoon in the first half. Riders blocked a couple field goals by Ottawa. Ottawa did kick one. And the Riders, who had done absolutely nothing offensively all half, get a couple big plays in the final 20 seconds. Brett Lowther kicks a field goal. It's 3-3 at halftime. So we go through the second half. The game is 3-3 for a while. Ottawa gets a field goal and then a single to go up 7-3. Then another field goal, and they're up 10-3. We're now late in the fourth quarter. With 2 minutes left in the game, it was 10-3. Saskatchewan comes down, scores a touchdown in the final minute, or around a minute left or so. It's tied at 10. They then get a pick and kick a field goal with, I don't know, I want to say like 30 seconds, 25 seconds left, something like that. It's 13-10 Saskatchewan. Ottawa, who had done not much offensively all game, they get it together. They get a few big plays. Lewis Ward ties it up with zeros on the clock to make it 13-all heading into overtime. And then it got absolutely bizarre. Everyone, if you're familiar with the CFL overtime, it's college style, and there's a maximum of 2 possessions, and you have to go for 2. So Ottawa scores a touchdown. It's now 19-13. They don't get the 2-pointer. Saskatchewan responds with a touchdown. And I should say, it looked like the game was over on a third down. People are coming out. No, we've got command center review. PI, Saskatchewan lives to see another day. Score a touchdown. It's 19-all. They don't get the 2-point convert, and we're going to the second OT. Saskatchewan now starts. They move forward. They're not able to get it into the end zone. They kick a field goal, 22-19. At which point, Ottawa comes back. Now, Ottawa gets sacked on their first play. And then it looked like the game was over. Crum gets smoked. The ball goes down. Basically looked like a fumble. Recovered. Game over. Guys are shaking hands on the field. Congratulations. Getting ready for the prayer circle. Hold up, everybody. We're going back to the command center. Roughing the passer on a low hit. And the guy basically did a kamikaze move over the top of the line, and he did legitimately end up hitting Crum low. That is reviewed. First down for Ottawa. They move it forward a little bit longer and then, have a third down. And the very rare walk-off tie happens, a field goal to tie it up. There's no third possessions. It's a tie for both teams. 22 all, over 43 and a half hits. The Riders plus the points hits, and they don't win on the money line. It was, we often say only in the CFL, Jake, but that was an all-time only in the CFL night. I'm still, and by the way, then there was a big altercation after the game. Some guy apparently that was on the Riders sidelines getting into it with Bobby Dice and whatnot. Riders saying, hey, he's not with us. So now there's a manhunt to identify who this guy was that got into it. One of the most bizarre games, period. And what a way to start off the week in the Canadian Football League.
Well, and this is why we always say, Huss, life's too short to bet the under, because that over was dead and gone. And all of a sudden, back from the dead, a walk-off tie field goal to go over by a half point. And if you had the under last night, I'm very sorry. That's on the all-time bad beats list for you. But that's why you don't bet unders, and I'm going to contradict myself when we do get to NFL futures. I do have an under there on the card. That'll be a little tease. The other thing, Huss, that you didn't mention, I believe on first down, Ottawa was real close to the end zone at this point. There was a throw by Crum that nearly got picked off right into the hands of the SAS player and just bounced right hard off his chest protector and down to the ground. I was like, oh, my God. They showed the sideline shot, and all the players were like, I just couldn't believe it. Like, he might as well have thrown it to him. That's what it looked like. I don't know if it was just the way he moved. He cut the route so perfect. I'm like, he beat him down. So I thought Sask would have won it there. And sure
you know what they say about DBs? They're wide receivers that can't catch.
Yeah. And, I played 1 year wide receiver, and that's all they ever said about the DBs was basically just a wide receiver who can't catch.
Hey, and you know what? While we're talking about last night, so it was nice. We got the first leg of the lock shop parlay with the Riders plus the points. I got that 2-gamer that I was talking about yesterday. We're in, and we're on the Argos tonight. But it was a great night for the lock shop, and shout out to the chat and the DGen Den. I was riding with you all, and we got it done. Over 2.5 in the Seattle Sounders, LA Galaxy. 4 goals in that one. Thank you very much. Over 8.5 in the Angels-Yankees game. That was 9-4. And over 7.5 in the Reds-Marlins, 10-4. So 3 very comfortable unders from the contributors at the DGen Den, and a nice little boosted parlay at plus 513 for the people. So on behalf of myself and everyone else that rode with you, great work to everybody in the chat. Let's get to the Olympics first. And I'm actually watching the gold medal soccer match, Spain.
I got that on as well.
Now. Fun to watch that. I was firing up the CBC Gem app today and watching some of the breaking.
Pause.
It's I don't know.
What are we doing here? You see this Australian girl? She's going viral right now on Twitter. What are we doing with this breaking? Listen, no offense to the breakers, because I hope Phil Wizard medals here for Canada, but I'm pretty content with it being just this
one and done.
This one and done Olympics here.
I love the names too, like the Chinese girl in the breaking. 671. I mean, she just goes by 671, which is pretty funny. I'll be interested to see. Like, she actually did a lot more almost like gymnastics types moves, like 671. I can't believe we're talking about this, but 671 had a more athletic routine. I thought, like, it seemed a lot more like a sport, if you will, as opposed to, people just juking around. I mean, the names are hilarious. It's all one-word names. Well, Phil Wizard is too, but I'm not sure whether he'll just be Wizard on when we're actually looking at the Olympics. The Chinese B-girl is named 671, and I had to laugh. I mean, I was not prepared for a white girl from Lithuania rocking a do-rag, but here we are.
What a world.
Breaking is in it. So it's the women's tonight. I guess they'll give out the medals tonight, and I presume Phil Wizard goes tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
Women's today.
From what I saw, it was all one day. So they had the round robin. It looked like almost like a dance off, basically in the round robin. You get a certain amount of votes from the judges, and then that's how they rank you. So I assume only a certain amount will go on. It seemed like almost like a March Madness style bracket when I was looking at it, because they had, where the rankings were. Like that Chinese girl we're talking about, the 671, she was the number one ranked breaker, and it showed. Like she clearly was doing different things than what else we were seeing. So, it sounds like they'll wrap up tonight with the final, and then we'll get Phil Wizard tomorrow. I believe they start in the morning around 10 a.m.
Yeah, and speaking of Mr. Wizard, we still do have the breaking exclusive. Phil Wizard to win gold plus 250. So he's right in there amongst the medal favorites, and I think it's a little more unpredictable and out there, with it being the first time it has been in. So there's your breaking update. Keep your eyes on 671 in the finals tonight, representing China. But we've got a big one tonight. And listen, for obvious reasons, beach volleyball is a very popular sport for everyone to watch at the Olympic Games. But Canada's going for gold. Melissa and Brandy, I don't know if everybody kind of followed that match yesterday. We watched it again last night on primetime. They lost the first game.
Oh, yeah.
And they were facing match point in the second game. They battled back, won the second match to get it to 1-1, and then pulled away with 4 straight points at 11 all in the third matchup. They're ranked 7th. So this was, for them to get to the gold medal game, huge achievement, guaranteeing them a silver medal. But now it's time to try to win gold. And obviously they're going up against the Brazilian powerhouse in Duda and Ana Patricia, plus 245 right now for the Canadians to win the gold medal. They'll be up against it. They've got the silver already, but if you like a nice little underdog story, Jake, we've got that one coming up. And, there's even a set spread as well, and just a first set winner available.
Yeah, you talk about Canada dropping the first set yesterday. Brazil also dropped their first set to Australia. That Australian team, I went down the list, the rankings you're talking about, they were like 26th, 27th on the list. So obviously they were a pretty big underdog to be in that spot. I don't know what those rankings mean, like how up to date they are. Obviously it's tournaments throughout the year, but yeah, like you mentioned, Canada's 7th. This Brazilian team is the number one team in those rankings. But that Australian team must have been a big story as well to be where they were yesterday. And they did win the first set. Unfortunately, weren't able to get it done against the Brazilians. But I don't know. To me, Huss, it feels like anything can happen. And the one thing, I watched it, yes. I watched the full Canadian match and a little bit of the Brazilian-Australian match. And the one thing that I noticed was it almost felt like teams were at a disadvantage when they weren't on serve. Or sorry, when they were on serve. Like it felt like every time they'd serve over, the opposing team had a great chance for a set and spike, a set and power, where, it felt like, it feels like the serve in at least team volleyball, sixes, it feels like the serve is super important because, that's what's, getting you like your advantage, where in beach, it didn't feel quite that way. Obviously Canada did have a few aces, which are huge. You just got to hit the pull over the net and you're getting an ace. That's massive. But that felt like more of a miscommunication thing than anything. It feels like for some reason the service is more in your favor if you're being served to as opposed to being on serve.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is that, the servers, like for instance, with the Canadian team, like the Melissa is, a shorter player and doesn't have the same spiking abilities that Brandy does, being much taller.
Right.
Brandy's always the one at the block. They would love to have it that Brandy is hitting it, but basically what you're doing is you're always serving to the person that you'd rather have spike because there's only two players. Right. Unlike in the sixes, as long as someone gets it up, someone does the set, and then you've got a number of players that can hit it. It's back and forth in the beach. So the ability to target where you're serving and at least get an advantage when it comes to the player that's putting it back over, I think is part of the way that it works. But, we did see the top teams right now are able to simply win more points on serve. And that's what is the difference. You always talk about side out. If you can get on a little bit of a roll with your serve, that, it's huge. And, getting a little bit of a gap, knowing that, the side outs are a little bit more frequent. Again, so we've got Canada plus 245, Brazil minus 250. And you can get plus 1.5 at minus 130 for Canada. So that would be to win one of the first two.
Right.
At that point, you'd be laughing. Now Brazil to sweep minus 103 for that. So and you know what? It's going to be a real scene too. I mean, that's going to start 4:30 out your way, 3:30 here in the Peg, 2:30 out in Edmonton. That is going to have a 10:30 start time in Paris. So I have a feeling that is going to be a real liquored up crowd in the shadows of the Eiffel Tower. That's going to be a scene. I mean, I think it'll be definitely worthwhile. Beach volleyball is always worth watching, but this one even more so.
Well, listen, we didn't get Canada men's basketball into the final. A little disappointing there, but I think this is something to wrap up our Olympic Games that we can say, no matter what happens here, like what a moment for these Canadian girls who really weren't expected to be in this spot. Like we mentioned, I'll be tuned in 4:30 over here. It's a great time. Kind of right before the work day's up. I'll be dialed in. I'll probably be getting a few tweets out there for the girls. But yeah, it's a big moment for them. I don't know how you don't sprinkle a little bit. The number started yesterday at 2-1. It's plus 245 now. Just to get a piece of that, you're going to be watching it. you're going to be tuned in. And it'd be a great way to come out with one more gold here for Canada before, I guess, Sunday we're wrapping up here, eh, Huss?
Yeah, I mean, and it's gonna suck. I mean, next week we're like, what are we gonna do? We got although NFL preseason started. We're gonna dive into all of that. Bombers are back in action, so we'll have plenty to talk about. If you want to ride with the Canadian girls, as I said, it's up right now, plus 245, 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, 2:30 Mountain Time. The start for tonight's matchup. Listen, we're going to dive into football, basically for the second half of the program. How is life as a Jays fan these days? Are you just living and dying with Vladdy in the hit streak right now, and just all positive thoughts into Vlad, who, by the way, is doing a great job of upping his value, knowing how crucial it is now for the Jays with everyone else that's gone, that they kind of keep some part of their core together. He's been amazing ever since he cut his hair.
Yeah, that's the story right there, Huss. It's nothing to do with anything else. It is ever since Vladdy cut the dreads, he has been incredible. 20-game hit streak right now. His average over those 20 games, 507, which means every second at bat, he's getting a hit. It's insane. 10 home runs. I think he has 37 hits over the span, 22 RBIs, 23 runs. I believe he has 11 doubles and 11 walks to his 7 strikeouts. So he's been absolutely insane. He's the only guy to really be excited about outside of some young guys that they have brought up. Horwitz has been all right. Barger's been fun to watch. The new guy they got from Houston, Loperfido, I think his name is. He's been a nice little piece. Obviously, Bichette's been hurt, so you haven't seen him in the lineup. Sounds like more than likely Bichette's probably going to be gone. It sounds like they're not going to pay him. Might trade him in the offseason. I don't know how it all works. Contracts in baseball are a little weird to me. It's not like year to year. There's a bunch of arb years in there, and it's a little weird. So, I think this is, listen, I know obviously right now Vladdy's at his peak of what you should be paying him, but realistically you probably should have been paying him already. So it's a matter of if you are serious about being a winning baseball team, it starts with your main piece, and right now that's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. There's no argument otherwise. He has been absolutely unreal. I watched him last night. He was a single away from the cycle. He went double in the first, double in the first, home run in the fourth, triple in the fifth, and then didn't get a chance to come up again. I think one he had out somewhere in there, but if he had a chance to come up again, he was a single away from the cycle. A guy of his stature, a guy of his, he's not necessarily the fastest guy out there, but to be a single away from the cycle, it's not an easy task to complete. So listen, he's been absolutely unbelievable. I'm ready to pay him. Even if they're not going to be this and they're in a tough division. You have to remember at the same time,
Yeah.
Huss, like all these teams in this division are good, and they're going to be good for a while. The Orioles, especially, like unbelievable, the young talent they have there. To even win that series, 2 out of 3 was pretty fantastic in itself. But yeah, they're serious about winning baseball games, and they claim to be. You know, Ross Atkins is on there saying, "Oh no, like you know, it's a disappointing year, but we want to be back in you know contention next year. We want to compete next year." Well, guess what? It starts by paying the best players. So time to pay Vladdy and then go from there.
It's so nuts. I mean, if we'd had this, and we probably did have this conversation a year ago, and at the beginning of this season, I thought it was way more likely that Bo would be the guy sticking around and Vladdy would be gone. But
Right.
when you see the way this season has turned for Bo and for Vlad, hard not to lean towards Big 27 for it. If you're looking at this game tonight, they're hosting the A's. Jays are minus 147 on the money line. And the Vladdy total bases number is 1.5, over minus 115, under minus 115. Obviously, we'll be taking the over on that one. If we want to talk about a guy just staying absolutely red hot, his home run number is actually not the lowest number. Vladdy to hit a bomb is plus 450. Springer's plus 400. Brent Rooker plus 325. Dalton Varsho plus 450. I mean, considering how hot Vladdy is, I mean, that number sort of sticks out, especially considering he's not even the low guy on his team to go deep.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been all power for Vladdy. Like, it has truly been just professional hitting. Like, hitting balls to the opposite field. He banged one off the wall yesterday that got his triple. Like, he has just been, like, up there. And Penner's Pancake said it here. He goes, you know, to be fair, don't think Vladdy puts up these numbers on a team playing for a wild card spot. They're out. He's playing loose. Not much to lose. I don't know. Like, he's still playing against the top talent. These other teams they're playing are in a race here, or in a pennant race, or in a playoff race. So it's not like he's playing against low-level competition. Like, he's still doing it against top-end talent. And, you know, it's been over a huge span here, 20 games now. So I think it's all eyes on Vladdy. It's not even all eyes on the Blue Jays at this point. Just see how many games Vladdy can go here. I agree with you. I think until further notice, it's Vladdy over 1.5 total bases until the wheels fall off, basically.
Listen, I'm just looking at the oh my God, Cowboy in chat. This is going back to the the Riders game. I saw the rain at the start and live bet the under. Oh my God, Cowboy. I feel for you, buddy. I feel for you.
I mean, on so many levels, he was right. Like, on so many levels.
Oh, absolutely. It was 3-3 at halftime.
Those are the most frustrating ones, because you're just like sitting there, you're like, okay, just need this game to end. And then all of a sudden, something crazy happens. They tie it up. Oh my God. Just everyone. And for it to lose by half a point too is just
everyone, you know, and you know, the more you bet sports, particularly football. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm always in a situation, you know, in the fourth quarter, you know, when you've got either a total or a point spread, thinking, how can I get screwed? What could possibly happen to turn this guaranteed winning bet into an L? And in that case, it was 13 points on the board in the last 90 seconds of the game, and then score. You'll never have a worse beat than that one, Cowboy. I don't even know what to tell you. Big Maple's in the house. Big Maple always comes packing UFC tips. He's got some great stuff in the chat right now. I'm just looking. He likes Shalan Post Gurgu. By KO, TKO, DQ is plus 105. Parlaying that with Danny Barlow by KO, TKO, or DQ. And then Damon Jackson, plus 185 against Chepe Marsico. Jackson is as tough and durable as they come. Veteran experience who won a deserved split decision over Anthony Hernandez in his last fight. Okay, this is what I wanted to know. Where are you going with the $25 free bet and get? I bet it every single week. It is the most no-brainer bet at Coolbet. You pick something, even if you're not paying attention to it. If you win, great. It's in your account. If you lose, don't worry about it. Come Monday, you got a free $25 to fire. So unless you say differently, Big Maple, I'll ride with you with Damon Jackson at plus 185, which is a pretty nice number. You get much into the UFC?
Only if I'm with my buddies and we're watching it. Usually I won't. Not something I usually would like blind bet. If I'm sitting down and I'm watching, I'll get a few bucks on there just to have some action. But I don't watch it a whole lot unless I'm kind of with some friends and we're like, hey, let's watch some UFC tonight. And if it's a big card and some people are together, it's a great time. Not necessarily my go-to. I'm really looking forward to football season here, though. I like college. College is so close, and then it's NFL, and we're rolling for weeks on end of just football every freaking day.
I saw your video this week. Wisconsin under on the total. Tough schedule for you're already getting into the college schedules. I love it. Have you been?
Yeah.
By the way, do you have the college football game?
No, I don't have the game. No, I don't even have a console for it at the moment. So probably for the best.
You might need to get one. You
might
probably
for the best. Probably for the best.
It's so good.
I got a girlfriend, all right? My girlfriend, if I got the college football game, I no longer have a girlfriend. I'll tell you that.
No, you know what? This is how you make a lasting relationship. Your GF, I hope she's watching. You know what would be a real nice gift for old Jakey? Xbox Series S and the CFB 25. And then, hey, you won't have to worry about you running around. You'll be locked in. You'll be locked in playing this game for the next few months. Let's get to some NFL futures. And folks, if you go over to a Coolbet right now, it is locked and loaded. Pretty much, you name it, we've got it. We've got AFC winners, NFC winners, Super Bowl winners for all of the divisions, win totals for every team, and then we start getting into player props, passing, rushing, receiving, and of course the award winners. As well as league leaders. You know what? Just because it was brought up in the chat, let's just take a quick look at the most rushing yards for the season. Christian McCaffrey is the favorite at plus 250, which is interesting. McCaffrey is the number one fantasy guy. He does so much damage catching the football as well. I don't know that he's a slam dunk to be that number one guy. Saquon Barkley, 6-1 now with the Eagles. Jonathan Taylor, a lot healthier than he was last year. He's at plus 650. Breece Hall is at 8-1. And then Derrick Henry, now with the Ravens. Kyron Williams with the Rams. Bijan Robinson with the Falcons, all 10-1. Josh Jacobs, I had to remember, he's now with the Green Bay Packers. And Aaron Jones is with the Vikings of all teams. Free agent. It's going to look weird this first week.
I'm going to need a total refresher before I start doing any sort of fantasy drafts because my sister's boyfriend was doing a fantasy draft last week and we were together and he's like, oh, can you give me some help? And I was trying to give him help and I'm looking at the teams that these guys are playing for. I'm like, oh, I didn't know Josh Jacobs was a Packer. What's going on here? I'm clearly behind on where everyone is. So I'm going to have to do some refresher.
I always like taking a couple of longer shots with some of these because especially when we're talking about rushing, guys can get hurt, miss a few games, be on good teams to get rested at the end of the year. It really is. It's an inexact science. And that's why I wouldn't be looking at the top of the board. Tell you what number really stands out to me, Jake, and I will be putting a little sprinkle on it. Jahmyr Gibbs with the Lions, 22-1. When we saw what he did in the second half of last season and just how productive he was running the football, how good Detroit is, how much they have to respect the passing game. He was a rookie last year. Singletary, of course, really did cut into his effectiveness. He had, certainly if you're a fantasy owner, it drove you nuts.
Montgomery.
Montgomery. It drove you nuts when he, vultured the goal line carries. But for just straight rushing yards, I think Gibbs is live. And at 22-1, to me, I think Gibbs should be in that 10-1 range, like somewhere in between maybe Josh Jacobs in that group of Henry, Kyron Williams, and Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was absolutely electric, can break big plays every time he gets the football. And I really do think that Dan Campbell, now that this young man's established himself as the go-to guy, is going to make a point of getting the ball into his hands a lot more. And if he can stay healthy and play the full regular season, no reason why he can't be right in the mix for the rushing leader in the NFL.
Yeah, I was looking. He was one of the ones I was kind of looking at where we're talking futures. I didn't end up punching the ticket on him, but his touchdown number, I think, is at like 8.5. I think he had 10 touchdowns in his last 11 games last year. Really wasn't getting the usage that he needed early on. The minute they started using him correctly, oh my God, he was absolutely blowing it out of the water. So Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't mind that pick at all, especially 22-1 number, like a little sprinkle there. You can't imagine, he could absolutely, like right now the depth chart's still showing Montgomery as one, but I think he can absolutely jump Monty and move into that, prominent role especially as how young he is and how effective he was, like you said, at the end of last season.
Well, and listen, I mean, just imagine what happens, because I mean, Montgomery is still going to get touches.
Right.
I just think that it will start to skew more in Gibbs' favor. And the bottom line is his yards per carry, his ability to break big plays. I mean, he's going to get his this year. And then if something happened to Montgomery and all of a sudden he's really the guy getting both, I mean, the potential goes through the roof. So
yeah,
I do like Jahmyr Gibbs at 22-1. It was, I think, Darwin in chat asking about Derrick Henry. And he'd seen it 8-1 elsewhere. As we mentioned, he's 10-1 right now. What do you think about Henry and his role with the Ravens? I mean, they're not signing him for 2 years not to give him the football. And it really does create a fascinating challenge for defenses in that you've got D. Henry and Lamar Jackson in the backfield. It will be a nightmare for defensive coordinators scheming on how to stop the run. And if you do that, what that might open in the Baltimore passing game.
Well, it's interesting too. We always talk about the thunder and lightning backs, right? Like the heavy back, the guy who can power run, big body, and then the guy who's a little bit quicker. You think about like a Zeke and a Pollard back in the Cowboys days when they were together. That's kind of what you're getting with Lamar and Henry. You got Lamar, the shiftiness of speed that he has, and then Derrick Henry with the power that he runs with, plus Lamar's a quarterback, so he can throw the football as well. So it just adds so much more there in terms of what they can do in the run game, and it'll be super interesting to see. I'm a little hesitant on if you're doing any sort of like touchdown numbers for either Lamar or Derrick Henry, like rushing touchdown numbers. I just don't know what that's going to look like when they do get to the red zone. Another one I was thinking of today when I was going through the futures is the Hurts-Barkley combo. Like I think that could be super, like really good for both guys with Hurts and Barkley. But we saw Hurts, he gets so many of those tush push, near the goal line that it's like, do you want to take Barkley for touchdowns? Probably not. So I'd just be weary on, who's going to score the touchdowns in that pairing. But I think they'll both get theirs when it comes to the yards. And it'll be super interesting to watch the Baltimore Ravens this year and how they'll perform, with that dynamic duo in the backfield.
They'll be great in the regular season. I have no doubt about that. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Hey, Lamar is the number 2 player in the NFL.
Us?
Behind Tyreek Hill.
I got a whole rant on it to close this show out today. So that'll lead you into Friday afternoon.
What do you have a couple of other your favorite futures that you're already kind of looking at right now to get in ahead before lines move?
Sure. Yeah. Listen, we're talking players right now, so I'll keep my team one for now. I'll start with Kyron Williams. I got him over 950.5 rush yards. This guy was an 1,100 plus rush yard player last season for the Rams. He gets 2 games against the Arizona Cardinals, who were one of the worst rush defenses in the league last year. He also gets 2 games against the Seattle Seahawks, who are another awful rush defense. They play kind of a mixed schedule, some good teams, some bad teams. And I think this guy takes another step this year in his rushing. You see there, if you go to the league leaders in rushing, he's at one of those 10-1 numbers. So obviously, the book has eyes that he could be an impact player this year for the Rams. Their backup right now, I believe, is Blake Corum, coming out of Michigan last year. A solid player, young, rookie. I think he's going to take a little while to get in. So I think we're going to see a lot of Williams early on. If he can stay healthy, Huss, I don't see how he doesn't clear the 1,000-yard mark once again. Like I said, he's going to see plenty of poor run defenses based on 2023 numbers, 2024 projections. And he only played 12 games last year, Huss, and had 1,100 plus rush yards. So that's one of the guys that I got my eyes on in terms of running backs. For wide receivers, I'm looking at Chris Olave, over 1050 and a half receiving yards. He's the number one receiver now in New Orleans. There's no doubt about that. Obviously, there were some issues last year. Michael Thomas couldn't stay healthy. They still have Kamara there. But I think another year with Derek Carr, coming off a year where he was over 1,100 receiving yards, I think he was 13th most targets among wide receivers last year.
Ton of balls.
Like, he's going to get the football. So break a few more. I think there's no doubt in my mind he clears 1,100 once again. Like I said, I think this guy has the potential to be a 100 reception guy. I think he had 88 or 87 receptions a season ago. I think we don't be surprised if he's a 100 reception guy and he's over that 1050 and a half mark. So those are two of the running back and wide receivers I have. Why don't you give me a couple of yours? I can get into a team one and then close out with my my big rant here on the NFL.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm really high, like many people are, on the Texans. And the CJ Stroud was just so good last year. And the way that they have added to this club, there are legitimate expectations. And it's always cool looking at, and we'll get to this in a minute, and certainly over the next few weeks, identifying the team that goes from worst to first. It happens a couple times every single year. You can turn things around really quickly. And there's a couple teams that are high odds to win their division that do intrigue me. But I'm in on CJ Stroud. You add Stephon Diggs to a group that it has Nico Collins. It has Tank Dell. They've got Joe Mixon now, who will add to, having that veteran in the backfield who can also catch passes. I think is going to get his touchdown total is 26 and a half. I mean, we saw him go 4 touchdowns a game multiple times last year. They're in a division that they're going up against the likes of the Titans, who are sort of rebuilding, the Jags, who have been iffy defensively. I love the CJ Stroud over. I mean, again, as long as he stays healthy, I think he gets to 30 TDs comfortably. So I'm in on that. Another over that I do like, and I know we've kind of talked, if you blindly bet a bunch of unders just with injuries, you can probably do well. And there's nothing that'll kill your over bet more than a guy missing 4 weeks with some sort of an injury. But assuming health, I think Breece Hall is an absolute lock to go over 1,050 and a half yards. This is a guy in an offense that Aaron Rodgers has some great weapons with Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams there now as well. But you think about those Packer offenses that they've had before, and of course Nathaniel Hackett's been a part of, they love to run the football. And the more they run the football, the more it opens it up for Aaron A, to have time and to protect him, which is going to be job number one for the Jets. And Breece Hall's shown that when he gets the ball, he is as productive as anybody in the National Football League right now. So, listen, I know I just talked about Jahmyr Gibbs at 22-1 is a nice little longer shot. Breece Hall at 10-1 to win, I think, is as good of a bet as you can make towards the top of it. But I think he goes comfortably over 1,050 if he actually is able to play, the season. And that's what you're hoping whenever you're taking a guy on an over for a season total.
You know what, Huss? We might have to do a little Kyren Williams versus Breece Hall friendly bet between you and I, and the next time we're together,
I like it.
After the season's over, the loser buys the other one a beer or something like that. We'll have to keep those two guys in mind since we both got running backs. Expected to be pretty high, like pretty decent totals this year as lead backs of their team. The other one I had for a team, Huss, you mentioned the Texans. I got the Titans under win total at 6.5. I'm just not really sold on Will Levis right now. Vrabel's out of town. I thought, I really liked Vrabel. I was surprised they let him go. But I think it's one of those things where, they feel they're rebuilding. They want a fresh start with everything, including the head coach. I just think it's a tough division to play in. You got to play the Jags twice. You got to play the Colts twice, who I think will be solid with Richardson, a healthy Richardson. And you got to play the Texans twice. Even if they split a couple of those season series, they got to play the AFC East, which means they get the Dolphins, they get the Bills, they get the Jets. Obviously, the Pats aren't very good. I think they got to play the Bengals at some point this year. I just have a hard time finding 7 wins, on their schedule. So I'm on them under 6.5 wins, minus 133 right now. They did add Pollard and Calvin Ridley, which I thought was impressive, but Hopkins is out for several weeks, so more eyes go on Ridley, and then who is it after that, basically? So I'm not super sold on the Titans just yet. I think that's a team that I'm fading this year. Are you ready? Are you ready for the rant? I know you're gonna love it.
One quick mention on this. And I'm just looking up in the chat. There's a whole bunch of more stuff coming in talking about Vladdy, the Ravens. Here's a question for the chat. No looking to you. Do you know who the coach of the Titans is?
You couldn't even guess, Huss. I have no idea. No idea.
See if anyone can get it. And I did this because, I was thinking about the players that have moved around, and you're like, wait a second, Aaron Jones is on the Vikings. And then I got thinking about a couple of the coaching spots. I'm like, wait a second.
Right.
Who's there? There's the guy from Tampa that went to Carolina. He's taken over. Dave Capilano, I think his last name is, something like that. But the Titans coach, former Bengals OC, Brian Callahan, son of Bill Callahan, and he's brought his old man in to coach the offensive line. I think this is going to be a couple of years in turning this thing around. So I kind of do like you on it. Just before you finish up with where you're going here, one number, and I don't know whether it's I just spent 3 days in a boat with a friend that's in my phone as Johnny Viking, who is an absolute Viking psycho, and we spent a lot of time talking about it, but I've been paying attention to Vikings camp. JJ McCarthy looks like the real deal. I don't think he's going to get the week 1 start. I don't think he's going to be on the bench very long. And granted, it's training camp practices. I know he's gone for like 28 touchdowns and 2 picks so far in practice. Everyone around Minnesota said he's looked great. And my question is, with all the talent that they have elsewhere, if he comes in and has a great rookie season and plays, are the Vikings live in the NFC North? And you look at the odds right now in the North, the Lions are plus 130. The Packers are plus 190. Everyone loves the Bears. They're plus 315. And the Vikes are sitting there at 11-1. Now, I'm not saying it's likely to happen, but we see this every single year, Jake, with a team that no one's expecting to do anything. See the Texans last year go in, make the playoffs, sometimes win the division. I'm going to think long and hard about maybe putting a little sprinkle on the Vikes in the NFC North at 11-1 for one of those real long shots. Just for people, if you want to think about this worst to first or longest odds, the Pats have the longest odds, I think, of any team in the NFL to win the division.
Shocker.
Partly because, the other 3 teams are pretty good. They're 22-1. The Steelers are 6-1 and the longest odds in the AFC North. The Titans are 11-1. We just talked about them. I will not be picking them. Vikings 11-1. The Commanders and Giants are both 10-1 in the NFC East. Eagles are the favorite at minus 110, and the Cowboys are at plus 150. The Broncos are plus 1550 in the AFC West. The Raiders are 11-1. Chiefs the biggest favorite in the NFL to win their division at minus 303. And the Panthers 10-1 in the NFC South. And the Arizona Cardinals 12-1 in the NFC West. If I was betting today and had to put one wager on one of the teams with the longest odds in their division to win, it would be the Minnesota Vikings right now. And I think there's going to be a little steam on Minnesota as we get closer to the deadline, as we closer to the season. We'll be interested to remember this conversation and see where we're at, in the week leading into the NFL kickoff, if the 11-1 is still up on the board. All right, give us your parting shot, your final words for the weekend, Jake.
So if I know anything, it's bulletin board material. And while I was away, the NFL went out of their way to make Patrick Mahomes the 4th best player in the NFL. I don't know what it's going to take for him to be the 1st best player off 2 Super Bowl wins, going for the first ever three-peat in Super Bowls. But if anything, the fact that he was not even the first quarterback ranked among all players was astonishing. I believe it was Hill, McCaffrey, Lamar, Mahomes. Makes absolutely no sense to me. But this is exactly what the Chiefs need, Huss.
Oh, yeah.
Fuel to the fire. Because you're coming off a Super Bowl win, everyone's fat and happy, and the NFL releases their rankings and goes, Pat Mahomes, you're the 4th best player in our league. No. This guy is the face of the NFL. Trust me, I know. I've been a Patriots fan. I know what this is. This is bulletin board material. Patty's going to hang that number 4 up on the board and say, all right, boys, this is what they think of us. They got that worthy kid coming in this year from Texas. He's going to be incredible. I got Mahomes to win the MVP 6-1. It's chalk. I have to get on it. This is the year where Mahomes says, okay, you think I'm not the best player in this league? I'm going to show you I'm the best player in this league. So I don't think it's going to be one of those years like last year where, they kind of just drag along and then playoffs come and it goes boom. I think it's all year long. Every single game, they're going to be out to prove something. And I think this is the year Mahomes, because he's had years where he's blasted off for 5,000. Last year, only at 4,100. And, it helps when you have a guy like Isaiah Pacheco who helps change the offense a little bit. I think this is another year where he comes back. That's why I'm also taking over 32.5 passing TDs for Mahomes. Minus 145, a little juicy. I think he's going to be 35 plus again this year. He might be. There's a chance he's back up around 50 again. So
I'm all in on Mahomes.
Let's
go. You got
go.
me fired up. I think we need to have some sort of a special exclusive for the Mahomes Scorched Earth Tour, with the Mahomes to win the MVP. Maybe a passing, the over on the touchdown passes or something like that. And the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, or maybe Super Bowl MVP, regular season MVP, and Super Bowl. I'll think about a couple combos and we'll get it up. Here's, what's funny about this, and I obviously was bent, but that came out 3 or 4 days after the moron Raiders thought it would be funny to bring out the Kermit
the Frog.
Kermit puppet with the Mahomes thing on it. And I don't know if you saw him asked about it. He goes, yeah, well, Andy Reid goes, well, I don't know what they're up to. We don't spend too much time playing with puppets around here. And then they asked Mahomes about it. He goes, it'll get dealt with when it gets dealt with. So I'm going to that Raiders Chiefs game.
What is with this? Why do they want to poke the bear? And this was the other thing I had before we go. I think this might be the NFL. I think this might be a conspiracy. I think they want the first three-peat ever, and they're like, well, how can we poke the bear? How can we make the Mahomes and the Chiefs as mad as possible to get them to a Super Bowl, to get them a 3rd straight Super Bowl and be the first ever three-peat? Why don't we make him the 4th best player in the league after what he's done over the last 5 years?
Here's a question. What do the 3 players ranked ahead of Mahomes all have in common? McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, and Lamar Jackson. They all lost to Mahomes last year in the playoffs.
I was going to say, I have no idea. That's
he beat them all. The Dolphins.
That's what I'm saying. What are we talking about? And obviously the Chiefs' defense was great down the stretch, but this guy went out there with the cast of characters that we talked about, where he lost the Hill. And still went out there and took care of business and did it where it matters and won the Super Bowl. It's insanity to me. This isn't coming off a season where they got blown out in the playoffs or something like that. Coming off back-to-back Super Bowl wins, and they go, 4th best player in our eyes. I think it's a conspiracy, Huss.
Hey,
It's not crazy to say.
Petty.
Not crazy to
It's
say.
not Patty Mahomes. It's Petty Mahomes.
Yeah,
and he's going to be
Patty
sticking it
Mahomes.
to everybody all year long. JBM, great stuff. Enjoy the women's volleyball today. 4:30 your time.
Sounds like we just got a gold, Huss. Hold on, before we go. Canada wins gold 4x100. I don't know. Is that men's relay or women's? The chat's going crazy right now. My dad's texting me. The boys won.
I see the boys with the Canadian flags doing the run around the track. That's amazing.
Yes, that's huge because I think it's probably the last one for those four. By the sounds of it, like they were all up around their 30s, and it's likely the last 4x100 for that crew. So good to see them get it done.
Amazing. That is absolutely phenomenal. Canada 37.5 beats South Africa and Great Britain. The U.S. got DQ'd. Not too sure what happened. And just finishing this off as we go. As a wrestling guy, I love when there is wrestling influences. You know, you go to a game and you hear some of the sound effects. I love the fact that diving and track and field have gone full WWE with the entrances they have. They literally have, you know how the area when you introduce the guy and his music hits and he comes out? That's what they're doing right now for all the athletes, and they are getting into it as well. I just saw the women's relay of the USA team come out, and they all came out from behind the thing and came through. It looked like the bloodline being announced on Friday Night SmackDown. Great stuff. Anyways, shout out to Canada. And by the way, with that, Canada, if you bet Canada overs for medals, you're winning. Over 5.5 gold medals hit, now over 6.5 gold medals hit. I know there was a couple different numbers depending on when you bet that. And we will with that, we've passed the 22.5, which was the over total for Canada for total medals. And guaranteed, we're going to match the 24 in the last games because that makes 23. And then we've got the women's beach volleyball tonight, which at worst will be a silver medal. So shout out to our Canadian athletes. It is all good, and everyone's fired up in chat.
What a show.
All right, WST coming up in just a couple minutes. So, gang, if you want to come and join us, pop in over there. We'll do a marble race later on. We'll get to the Coolbet lines, hit the rest of the exclusives as well. Check out the exclusives, combo cards for the weekend. Don't forget about the UFC free bet and get. And if you are playing CFL, make sure you're using that 20% win bonus on your favorite bet of the week. Jake, have an awesome weekend, man.
Yeah, you too, Huss.
Everyone, take it easy. Good luck on your wagers. We'll see you on Monday's Lock Shop. We'll turn it back to the fellas at EST.